Hey everyone, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today I'm asking the question, if you change the name of a contact tracing app, is it no longer a contact tracing app? And I think you might know the answer to that, but here's what's going on. I thought this was actually really interesting, and it's coming from TechCrunch, and we are going to be talking about France, and I apologize in advance to any of my French colleagues, friends, listeners, viewers, whatever you are, if I start butchering your language. I deeply apologize right out of the gate. Now, let's just start. France's contact tracing app has been updated and is now called, and please pardon me, Tous Anti-COVID, which means everyone against COVID. And I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm just going to call it the app from now on. Let's just do that. Now, the French government is trying to pivot so that it no longer is basically a contact tracing app, or at least not just a contact tracing app. This is interesting. The previous name of this app was called Stop COVID. It wasn't a success. First, it is basically unclear whether contact tracing apps are useful tools to actually alert people who have interacted with somebody that's been diagnosed with COVID-19. That has actually been up to debate, and I've seen a lot of arguments on the data science side of both sides of those. Second, when you take that into consideration, the app just really didn't work in the way that the French government was hoping that it would. Now, back in June, the French government essentially gave us an update to Stop COVID 3 weeks after its launch. 1.9 French citizens downloaded the app, but Stop COVID only sent 14 notifications. That is not a lot for 1.9 million people. Now, 4 months later, basically this app has been downloaded and activated by about 2.8 million people in France, but only 13,651 people have actually declared themselves COVID-19 positive in the app, which led to a total of 823 notifications. Again, just a fraction of a percent for 2.8 million people. And even if you've tested positive in most cases, nobody's actually going to be notified with this app. Now, here's what's going on currently with this app, because they've really been working on this. And if you've been using this app, you will receive Tous Anti-COVID with a software update, meaning Stop COVID will automatically be changed in terms of the name. The French government is using the same app store and Play Store listing, and when you first launch the app, you go through an onboarding process, such as all the contact tracing stuff, such as activating notifications for the app, activating your Bluetooth, and on and on and on. Like most contact tracing apps, this will rely on Bluetooth Low Energy to build a comprehensive list of other apps that you have basically interacted with for more than a few minutes. Excuse me, not other apps, other users, meaning your Bluetooth Low Energy will basically brush against another Bluetooth Low Energy. So if you're walking by me and I've got it and you've got it, we will briefly communicate via this app, and essentially it's attempting to locate and trace everybody around you. It's essentially collecting ephemeral IDs of all of the other app users around you. Now, if you are using this app and you've been diagnosed as positive for COVID-19, your testing facility will hand you a QR code or a string of letters and numbers. You can then choose to open the app and enter that code and share, or basically to share the list of ephemeral IDs of people you've interacted with over the past 2 weeks. Ideally, they would then get a notification. The server for the app then, essentially the back end, flags all of those ephemeral IDs as belonging to people who have been potentially exposed, and then each server that's associated with that ephemeral ID is given a risk score. If it goes above a certain threshold, the user then receives a notification. The app then recommends that you get tested and you follow official instructions per the French government. But they've also added a few things to Stop COVID, now Tous Anti-COVID, which, again, I apologize for my French. You can now access recent numbers about the pandemic in France, new cases over the past 24 hours, number of people in intensive care units, information like this. That's also there's also going to be a new feed of news items, and right now it's basically just summing up what you can and cannot do in France per laws for the coronavirus outbreak. There's also some links to essentially useful resources and on and on. But I think this really underscores a couple of different issues and problems that we have with contact tracing. First things first, if this is actually going to work as an app, the vast majority of people have smartphones in virtually any country, France included. Same with here in the United States, which means the vast majority of people, or vast majority of the population rather, are going to actually have to have this and allow this to run Bluetooth on, basically bumping into everybody so that we understand who's running into anybody in terms of proximity. But because nobody has really been signing up for this, and 2.8 million people total in the country of France is not a lot, nowhere near the threshold they need to make this essentially effective, I think it underscores the reticence of the general public to really want to hand over more data than normal to their government. I think people have actually been listening to data mining and the data privacy issues. In Europe, the European Union has had this huge push for GDPR privacy. And now basically the governments are saying, because of this pandemic, please give us more information about where you're going, who you're interacting with, and all of that. There's a lot of people that are going to just have slightly bigger tinfoil hats than they've ever had by virtue of these kinds of things, and with the awareness of just the massive data breaches we've had in the past, which is the other point I've got here, which is data breaches on contact tracing apps. Now, I'm not saying stop COVID, now tous anti-COVID. Again, I apologize for my accent there. But we have seen other apps around the globe that have actually had data leaks when they are sending that data back to the cloud, or apps that have been poorly built, or things that are, or apps that are data mining your phone. We have seen this globally as countries have scrambled to develop these things very quickly and then try to get their populations to adopt them. And so the question then becomes ultimately, is a contact tracing app actually going to work? If nobody's on board or very few people are doing this, that's a very serious problem. I am surprised that governments around the world haven't gone to Facebook or Google to say, hey, just integrate it straight into the Facebook app and just turn it on and let's get it done. We can make it a mandate. And then how many people would actually uninstall Facebook? So Facebook probably doesn't want to do that. Same with Google. Hey, Google, you own or you develop the operating system for the vast majority of the mobile phones out there. There's a much larger Android population than there is an iPhone population out there. And so why not just turn it on? But I don't think Google wants to do that, because then everybody's going to buy iPhones, and Apple's not going to do that. I'm sure they're not. So this is a very serious issue that I think we have from the governmental level. How do we actually do contact tracing when nobody wants to turn over their information? Now, I can understand people that have been infected would obviously want to tell other people around them, oh my God, I've got this, it's awful, I hope you don't get it, please make sure you're not spreading this to anybody else. But if this is the method that we're taking, maybe it's not the right one. But it does make a lot of sense because everybody's got a smartphone. So I'm asking you this question: what would be the best thing that we could do for contact tracing? A lot of this already is trying to ensure privacy under GDPR. They're using Bluetooth, they're using backend IDs, so it's not saying that it's Nick's phone, iPhone or Android, that is infected. They're just saying that this person has had proximity to everything else and then giving everybody a risk score. They're trying to adhere to GDPR. I did an entire video on regarding Spain's contact tracing app, I want to say a month or two ago, but this remains a problem. And I'm not necessarily sure how we solve it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because this isn't going away. And I think the governments from around the world, whether it's France, United States, wherever you live, are going to continue to push for you to use this technology so that we can try to get over COVID-19 much faster. And believe me, nobody wants to see COVID-19 last. So that is your news of the day. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, everybody.